right, Jeffrey Paschal from 90 Day Fiancé. I never liked this guy, I must tell you from the very beginning. But today, watching this trial play out on court TV, I was completely appalled at some of the things that he had to say in regards to this woman and her injuries. It was absolutely horrible. 3 hours and 35 minutes and 16 seconds of a video. And at the end of it, he was proven guilty on all counts. So, there was monstrous depths that this man went to in order to basically prove this woman a liar and prove he did not, okay? In 2019, shortly before he began filming for the 90 Day Fiancé, The Other Way franchise, he was arrested for a brutal beating of his fiancée at the time. Now, more than 2 years later, he's going to trial. Now, if you guys remember, in between the time that we had this trial today and the time that this actually happened, he was with another young woman who had found out about these crimes and decided that she didn't want to deal with him. And he was with this woman, Varia Molina, and they didn't appear on the tell-all. We couldn't figure out why. There was really no explanation. Well, there was a lot of attraction towards interest in their story, especially when people understood what exactly happened. But Joffrey kept dislodging us from the truth and trying to make us believe that he was this person that didn't commit these crimes, even though there were pictures. And when I tell you these pictures were pretty gruesome, watching the trial today was pretty hard for me. I tell you guys, I was so surprised at the depths that he went to. But when I look in his face, I see a intensity. And when he was dealing with the young lady on the show, I saw a fakeness and an intensity that had a propensity to lead to violence. And for some reason, I don't know, I can see that in his face. Anyways, he is an accused wife beater and a rapist. And he is now a convicted wife beater. And fans wanted him removed from the show, which is why he was not at the tell-all. So on June 9th of 2019, Joffrey was arrested on charges of aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, and interference with an emergency call. He was accused of brutally beating his then fiancée, Kristen Wilson, and preventing her from leaving or calling for help, leaving her having to run to a neighbor's house barefoot in jeans. And I tell you, the story played out so crazily. They claimed, or he claimed, that they were at a restaurant. They both said they were at a restaurant. She apparently saw him on the phone, according to his testimony. She got jealous. She started running towards him, and she bashed her head face first into a window, a door. And she kept throwing herself around onto furniture and different items in the house, causing herself to have these bruises. She then fell into the bushes because she was drunk after they went to dinner and drank for 5 hours straight. This is his story. Her story is that she grew jealous and he got upset because he was jealous. She was jealous, and he began to brutally assault and beat her, slamming her face onto the floor, busting her lip and leaving a bruise onto her forehead, and dragging her through the house by her hair, which left bruises on the rest of her body. Now, those are two very, very different stories. And there was even some text messages that he claims was from Kristen that she claims did not come from her. And she tried to turn over her phone to the prosecution and subpoena records from the text messaging. However, they don't keep those things on hand all the time. So her face and body were covered in swelling and bruises, bleeding, wounds, and lacerations. And she was, like I said, able to escape to a neighbor's house to call 911, but not before he made her lay down in the bed with him on the edge of the bed and give him her phone so that he can go through her phone. Now, initial reports had described Christian as Joffrey's girlfriend at the time, but she was actually his fiance. All of this happened a short time, just a few months before he flew out to meet Varya Molina in Russia. On Wednesday, October 6th, Joffrey's trial began in Knoxville, Tennessee. The trial was being live streamed on Court TV, but that evidence was very upsetting to say the least. The defense's opening statement included Joffrey's attorney claiming that Christian's injuries were self-inflicted, as I told you. Joffrey's attorney had insisted that she hit her head against a door while running after him in a jealous manner. It was really, really sad, the injuries that this woman sustained. The injuries are extremely upsetting. And, just for people that have been through domestic violence situations, it's very triggering to say the least. There's extensive cuts, bruises, and swelling, and her face is distorted. She didn't look like herself. According to the initial police report, Joffrey allegedly forced Christian to wipe the blood away and flushed down the wipes down the toilet after he initially assaulted her. Cleaned her up is the word that he used today in court. However, the swelling and bruising worsened after that day, and it just became a horrible disfigurement of her face. Meanwhile, Joffrey's attorney insisted that it was physically impossible for Christian's head to have been, the prosecution insisted that it was physically impossible for Christian's head to have been bashed against the floor or self-inflicted wounds bashed against a window. And then Joffrey's attorney insisted that it was physically impossible for Christian's head to be bashed against the floor, as she had described. So prosecution was saying it was impossible for her to bash it against the window, and his attorney was saying it was impossible for it to be bashed against the floor. He also claimed that the assault could not have lasted as long as it did, or the injuries would have been more severe. Joffrey's lawyer also stressed the claim that she had consumed strongly poured cocktails before she apparently went crazy, because they tried to make her look like she was a loony person who was so jealous that she just went absolutely nuts. And I just felt so bad for her. She was insisting that that was not the case. She was insisting that she was not drunk. She was insisting that she did not send him any text messaging. And the prosecution's first witness that they called to the stand was the neighbor. This person is the person who Christian ran to their house when she got the chance to get up after Joffrey got tired after going through her phone. And they let her in to call 911. The neighbor testified that Christian showed up looking like she had been in an accident. When Christian testified, she recounted what happened in that vicious attack, entirely consistent with the previous coverage and her police report from 2 years earlier. Christian also shared some information that, though not new to the attorneys, that is new to the public, is that this is not the first time that this had taken place, and that almost resulted in a mistrial in which the judge did not grant on behalf of the defense. One of the pieces of information was that she and Joffrey had been engaged as well for quite some time when that happened, even though he was claiming that she was only his babysitter at the time. There was a serious timeline that led into the Varya Molina thing and the Christian thing, because it seems to be an overlapping there. Christian had initially begun dating Joffrey as far back as 2017, but they broke up in early 2018. That breakup was a dispute over whether they were going to be monogamous at the time. At the time, Jeffrey did not agree to be monogamous with her. Additionally, Christian revealed that Jeffrey had not told her about all of his children or his ex-wives, and she found out about them herself well into their relationship. Given how many of Jeffrey's exes have accused him of domestic violence, of course, he didn't want to mention them to her at that time. At the time of the attack, she was a 4th grade teacher who couldn't go back to work. She also clarified that she had only had champagne before the attack and not strongly poured cocktails, as the defense had tried to insinuate, and it was during her testimony that she shared of those horrific photos sitting in front of her. But the defense was very rough with her today, very mean, very nasty, and very sloppy. It was. Even the prosecution was sloppy in her cross-examination of Jeffrey Pascal. It was almost like she was harping on the text messages versus the injuries, and that could have caused a problem. And she came out with a bang when she pulled Christian up to the stand, because then she presented much more evidence to the jury. Another consistency with the initial police report was the presence of what looked like carpet burns, which lined up with the description that she had been drugged through the house. Similarly, blood had been smeared all throughout the house, including on a light switch, which lined up with her words in her order of protection filing against Geoffrey Paschal. The officer who struggled to describe Jeffrey's injuries took the stand today as well. Jeffrey claimed to have sustained scratch marks, but the officer said that they were clearly self-inflicted. On the stand, the officer described the marks by touching his own torso, in part because that's how he believed that they were sustained at the time. So the initial arresting officer did not believe what it was he had to say. The trial, as I said, could have gone into a mistrial when the officer had offered that opinion, and also when the young lady had mentioned that there were previous incidents. However, attorneys offered commentary during the live stream, sharing that Christian accounted for herself well on the stand, and she was very believable. Additionally, various legal experts weighed in on Jeffrey's wounds and that they did look self-inflicted. The jury didn't hear that commentary, though. Additionally, the jury got to know a lot about him, but they got the chance to see his mannerisms today, which was very confident. It almost seemed like he knew he was going to win this case. What I do know is that there was a lot missing from the state. There was a lot of records missing that they could have offered up. There was could have been doctor testimony as to how she sustained those injuries. Pretty bad. During Geoffrey's arrest, he was very violent with the police, so violent that he damaged a police cruiser and he had to be subdued and restrained multiple times. However, they did not charge him with vandalism. And that's probably because there is no video to show, no way to prove it. And of course, if there's reasonable doubt, then there's no use in filing the charge. But what I do know is that it would have been great for them to be able to show that temperament to the jury so that they can actually see him in action. Now, as I mentioned, he was convicted on all of his charges today. That includes the kidnapping, the assault, and also the interfering with a 911 call. And at the time that they read the verdict, he seemed to throw his head down in disappointment. I think because of how aggressive his attorney was, he felt that there was actually a chance that he might really win this case with the fake text messages and, claiming that she had bashed her own head to the tune of splitting her lip and a big scar on her forehead, scars all over her body. But I didn't believe him for 1 second. He came across very unbelievable to me and very pompous, like, a little too confident to be a man on trial for what he was on trial for. Didn't see any remorse there. And it was like he was just pretending like nothing happened. He tried to act like she just went from 1 to 1,000 on some crazy stuff. It was sad to see. It really was. And you know what? He is where he belongs, right behind bars. And he has assaulted several women in his, time of being with women. And Varia really did dodge a big nasty bullet in making sure that she did not end up with him. All right, well, that is it for me and Geoffrey. He is where he's supposed to be. Bye, Geoffrey. By the way, his date for his sentencing was set 45 days from today, which is, I believe, sometime in December, and I don't remember the exact date. I believe it was December 5th, but I will come back, do another report, and confirm that for you guys. In the meantime, let me know your thoughts.